Today's Lunch and Learn will be Lila Givens. She is sharing school wellness resources from the Alliance for a Healthier Generation. Since it's a lunch and learn, please feel free to eat, turn off your camera if you would like to. And so Lila is here to share more about their Whole Child, Whole School Health Initiative, and specifically about their work in Georgia. With that, I will pass it off to Lila. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Emily Ann. Thanks, Audrey. I'm so excited to be here with this group. I think there's so much I can learn from y'all in this work and so much kind of alignment and synergy with the work that we're doing. So excited to get to spend this lunchtime with y'all. If you haven't already, I would invite you to just do a quick check-in that we have on the slide. This is a mood meter, one of many that you can kind of find and use. And so the idea is just to check in with your energy level, how you're feeling today. We're going to use the annotate tool. So it should be in the upper toolbar at the top of your screen, and you can choose a stamp to annotate there. If you are kind of like in transit or on an iPad or on your phone, feel free to kind of check in the chat box if you want, or just check in with yourself individually on how you're showing up, low energy, high energy, feeling kind of unpleasant to pleasant. And this is helpful for me to see. We're more on the pleasant spectrum today with people that have shared, which is really nice. So I appreciate y'all being in this space, and I will try and match your energy as we go through our time together. Thanks, Lynn. Thank you, Julie. All right, I'm gonna clear our responses. All right. So we have some intentions, or I have some intentions for today that I want to share with you. And really, Audrey did a good job of kind of going over what I'm hoping to cover during our time together. I do want to talk about, the whole child health mission of Alliance for a Healthier Generation, continuous improvement process, and kind of how that could connect to our region here in Georgia. Explore some assessments and evidence-based practices and resources we have to offer. And then finally, we'd love to hear questions from you all, kind of have some dialogue around what you've heard and anything that's come up. So please feel free to jot down questions as we go so that we can have a good conversation at the end. And I'll also share what kind of next steps looks like, how you get connected to our resources, how you get connected to me, and all of that. All right. So at Healthier Generation, our mission is to promote healthy environments so that young people can achieve their lifelong, good health, including physical, social, and emotional health. And we all know that after a child's home, school is a really important place where youth experience life and learning. And we also believe at Healthier Generation that the health of adults surrounding youth is just as important. And so our mission really does include healthier teachers, school staff, and families. So you'll really see that as we go through our time together. And our work across the nation and in Georgia, kind of specifically around the work that I get to do, is in partnership and funded by Kaiser Permanente. And so I get to work with Quintez Gurndy, who's the local Thriving Schools lead here in Georgia with Kaiser. And Kaiser really has also a variety of resources and ways to support schools as well through their Thriving Schools initiative. And so I'll drop that link in the chat box in case folks are interested in learning more about their work. And I just want to welcome y'all to a wide network of social and emotional health partners. Those include schools, districts, community organizations, regional coalitions like y'all from across the nation. And to zoom in our work here in Georgia. So we've been working in Georgia for a while, since 2007, through our Healthy Schools program. And our work in Georgia has recently gotten to kind of deepen our work in Georgia with our social emotional health work. Specifically the RISE initiative. That's what I was kind of hired to do a few years ago. And so I'm the regional program manager, and I've had the privilege for the past 3 years of supporting 31 schools across 3 districts, all in the Metro Atlanta area. So I've been working with Fulton, DeKalb, and Douglas County schools and the district. My role is transitioning a little bit to be more focused on district level support and more kind of like coalition and network building, which is another reason I'm excited to be here today. Another way that Healthier Generation is supporting the work in Georgia is by supporting RESAs, the Regional Education Service Associations. I think I have that, correct me if I have that acronym wrong, through an extender or like an intermediary model. So we're doing kind of like a TOT framework. And that's also a way to think about y'all's work with schools, whether you're working, if you're not working directly in schools or districts, like kind of thinking about, you know, you all are kind of intermediaries of bringing resources and support to schools. And so specifically, we've been working with the Metro RESA and Heart of Georgia RESA. So would love to connect with anyone who is interested in learning more in general, but especially kind of thinking about these districts and these regions that we're already working with. Would love to, you know, learn about the work y'all are doing and kind of see how our work aligns. So I'll just make that plug if there are folks in the room. All right, so I'm going to move on to kind of why we prioritize student and staff health. And I definitely feel like I'm preaching to the choir here. But we know that physical, social, emotional, and mental health really impacts students' ability to learn every day. And it's been shown to boost attendance, enable educators' ability to show up ready to engage learners, and improve everyone's ability to be resilient through challenges. And we know that we're at a moment where it's vital that we continue to build environments where children and the adults can thrive and be healthy. And I know that y'all are really all leaders in your region around doing this work. So at Healthier Generation, we help districts and schools identify and achieve health and learning goals that fit their priorities, capacity, and unique needs. We really support incorporating health-related strategies into their district and school improvement plans to improve policies, practices, systems, environments that affect learning and development and health outcomes. So that's really the work I get to do with these districts that I'm working most intensely with. And our efforts align with these 4 whole child health outcomes. Of course, we're not solely responsible for moving the needle on these impact goals. It really takes a village, but having these goals help us stay focused and ensure that everything we do, you know, is hopefully having a positive impact and really lifelong health and academic success for young people. So I would love to hear a little bit from y'all in the chat box, if you're able. Considering your context, whether it's a specific district or a specific need in your region that's on your mind, what of these goals does your region or your team really identify with? Or, you know, where do you also have goals related to these outcomes? So if you just want to put in the chat box, you can just put the title, like either nutrition, physical activity, learning and development, or social emotional skills. Thank you. Socio-emotional skills, nutrition, and learning and development. Lots of social emotional skills coming through. That's great. That's really helpful for me to know as we move forward. Nutrition, SEL. Awesome. Keep them coming. I would love to see those just so as we're going through, I can continue how to have a sense of what would be most helpful. 3 and 4 align, graduation rates. Yep. Yes. Learning and development, SEL, awesome. Thank you all, that's really helpful. So how do we achieve these goals? At Healthier Generation, we use what we call a 6-step process for continuous improvement, and it's based on implementation science and can really help school and district teams make and sustain changes to improve health and learning. And again, this is really where my work with these districts comes in. I'm there to help district teams work through the 6-step process to create healthier school systems and districts for students and staff. Schools and districts can really start at any step within this process, but it's important to remember that all of them are really necessary to ensure that goals are achieved and have that long-lasting impact, that they really become integrated into the systems rather than dependent on like one person who just may be there and really like leading on an effort. We really want them to be integrated into the school's culture and routines. So I'm not going to go into, depth of this model. It probably feels really familiar because it aligns with a lot of other continuous improvement processes that are used in schools and in districts like MTSS, RTI, around PBIS. So would love, again, for y'all to put some info in the chat box. Are there any continuous improvement processes that your organization uses or maybe school districts use in your region that you know of? If you want to put those in the chat box along with any like similarities or differences that you see here. And awesome, I really appreciate these continued comments in here. Yeah, thanks, Emily. So yeah, any continuous improvement processes that y'all are aware of that you want to add? Strategic prevention framework, awesome. Thank you, Julie. Collective, and yeah, community schools model. Yep, I know the Metro RESA does a lot around, wraparound centers, and they have a model that really aligns with this too. Getting to outcomes, awesome. Awesome, feel free to continue to drop some things in the chat. It's good to know the language people are using as I continue this work in Georgia, so thank you for that. All right, so that's how we do the work. I'm going to talk about one of the resources we have, our Thriving Schools Integrated Assessment. We have a few different assessments that are available on our website, and you'll get info at the end about how to access it's just a free action center that you just have to make an account for to be able to access our assessments and most of our resources. Thanks, Lynn. Thanks, y'all. So, and we have a few different assessments, but this is kind of our newest and really most integrated, health integrated one. So it's the one that I'm going to talk about today that I think most is related to the work that y'all are doing. So this assessment is free, evidence-based. It supports schools and districts. So there are two different versions, a school version and a district version. It supports their leadership teams to identify strengths, as well as opportunities to improve. And again, focus on student achievement, development, and well-being. It also provides best practices and actionable steps towards improvement, rooted and really integrated, equitable approaches to supporting the health of the whole child. And so whether a school or district team is interested in focusing on one topic or undertaking a comprehensive assessment, it is a very long assessment. And so they can engage with it at different levels and at a pace that works for them. The Action Center allows multiple team members to work together on the assessment, to access related resources and trainings, to set action plans, to download reports, and data is really saved in real time so that teams can update answers at any time and kind of be working simultaneously on the assessment. These are the topic areas, so it is robust. These areas support health and learning outcomes. And again, it's self-paced, it's a flexible experience, so a team can prioritize which questions they want to answer based on their district priorities, needs, and also on their readiness for change. So it's not that they're necessarily digging into all of these topic areas at once. Maybe schools are ready for that, maybe a district is ready for that, but that's not the only way it's set up to use. The other thing I really like about this assessment is that the questions relate to multiple topic areas. They're included in all those different relevant topic areas. And so that question only needs to be answered once, and they'll kind of autofill where it shows up in other places. So for example, a question on offering, staff professional development on trauma-informed approaches, is based in the social emotional health topic, but the question also relates to family engagement, food access, and other topics. And so this feature of the assessment really helps school and district teams find synergies and where improving one evidence-based practice supports multiple health outcomes, because we know all of these things are very interconnected. And it's also helpful to know that if you're focusing on one practice, you get to see the way that that impacts multiple different areas. That's really encouraging, I think. So let's say a team is prioritizing one of these outcomes in their district improvement plan or their school improvement plan. The questions make it easier to align those healthier practices and policies to, let's say, improve chronic absenteeism, school discipline, school climate, staff capacity. All these things are related. So I'm going to go back a couple slides, and I would love to get kind of some, again, engagement in the chat box and get some information from y'all. Awesome. Yeah, handle with care. That's great. So looking at these assessment topic areas and knowing the work that you're doing in your region, what are some of these topic areas that are kind of high priority for y'all? I know for us, a lot of the work that I'm doing with districts is around cultivating staff well-being, as well as fostering positive school climate and culture, building staff capacity. These are all things that are really kind of showing up in the conversations I'm having. And so I'm eager to hear what kind of conversations and topics y'all are focusing on. Yeah, staff well-being and capacity. Awesome. And feel free, for those of you that are maybe in transit, if you want to come on mic and share out loud, feel free, but also don't feel pressure to. Safety. Safety comes first. Awesome. Another, cultivating staff well-being, capacity, chronic absenteeism too. Same. The attendance works program. Awesome. Staff well-being. Yeah, so seeing a lot of alignment here. Yeah, that cultivating staff well-being piece. We all know with the pandemic, you know, I'll say too, a lot of the, you know, thinking about some of the conversations around critical race theory, CRT, you know, there's just a lot going on for staff to have to kind of juggle and manage right now. Thanks y'all for sharing all of this in the chat. This is great. Educators being bullied. Yeah, I love this. Resilient teams, strengthening socio-emotional health, increasing family and community engagement. Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, y'all. I appreciate learning about all of these. This is awesome. Keep them coming. I love to see where there's that alignment. I'm going to keep us moving along and start talking about resources. Oh, sorry, I'm moving too fast. So as schools and districts set new health and learning goals, they can search and use a resource hub that we have, again, at no cost. The other way that they can find resources is on the assessment for each question. There are related resources that are linked right there. So that's also a good way if schools and districts know that they're focusing on a certain area, they can just go to that, you know, assessment question or that item on their action plan, and related resources are going to be linked right there. But we also have a resource hub that you can search through and look for. We have a lot of on-demand e-learnings. That's a big component of the resources that we provide. There are context-specific resources that are meant for schools to take, and they're general enough to be applicable, but there's going to need to be some kind of, you know, adjusting of them to meet their specific context and their school and district needs. And then there are also toolkits and guides that we have. And these are all vetted. We also have a lot of like vetted articles and resources from partner organizations on our website as well, which I appreciate too, rather than reinventing the wheel, putting resources on there that, you know, that other people have already spent a lot of time and energy on. We're always creating new content, so I encourage folks to kind of check back in with resources. And also let us know what resources are needed. We want to hear from schools and districts and what y'all are looking for. So I always appreciate folks reaching out to be like, hey, this is something I'm looking for, Lila. Like, I can't find it on the Action Center. Do y'all have something like that? Is that something you can work on? So that feedback is always really helpful. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about these resources that are on the screen right now, just to give you an idea about them. So this first one is an example of an e-learning that we have. It's really geared towards educators and all staff in the building. So one thing we really stress is that it's important to include both classified and non-classified staff. So teachers and administrators, but also lunchroom staff, janitorial staff, paraprofessionals, in a lot of the work that we're doing together, especially if we're thinking about, you know, professional learning and building a common language and a culture across a school. So this e-learning, it's really self-paced. It's broken down into 4 different 20-minute modules. So it's really meant to work with staff schedules and be manageable. And part one, it starts with defining burnout and introducing what we call the ABCs, which you'll see the ABCs listed below. And so in the first module, people will learn more about the cases, causes of burnout, how to identify it, how to balance it, and how to combat it. Part two is about awareness, so becoming aware of your own stress patterns, stress response patterns. And then we have some, tangible strategies around turning to the 3 Bs, your body, behaviors, and beliefs, and other takeaway strategies for fostering empathy and awareness of others. The third part is really about balance through boundaries, but also holistic well-being. Oftentimes we think about well-being as like eating healthy and exercising, but that's only one component really of what it means to take care of ourselves. And so being able to think about what self-care means for me, what's important to me, what do I need to prioritize? And then in the fourth part, we talk about connection. So building a safeguard against burnout by learning to effectively communicate boundaries and connect to your needs. It also comes with a companion guide for school leaders. So that's full of guiding questions, follow-up activities to extend the learning and help to, again, create common language around staff well-being and self-care. There we go, across the school. And so this is an example, again, of something that's, focused on self-care, which I know we've been hearing a lot about the past 3 years. Educators are probably like, I'm doing it, I'm practicing self-care, but I need some things from you, right? So I think the important thing to think about professional learning like this is how it's being systematized, how is the school or the district creating space and kind of flexibility in teacher schedules to be able to practice self-care. Something that goes along with this training really well is a toolkit we have around creating a staff Zen-in or decompression space, and thinking about how you're working into the schedule of the day, a system where staff can take breaks if they're feeling overwhelmed. If a student gets escalated, where's the space for the teacher to be able to step away and take a few minutes to do what they need to do before having to come back and re-engage a whole classroom of students. Or a staff member getting a phone call from home with some bad news, where's that space for them to step away? And that really takes system and policy change at the school and really district level. That stuff can be, reinforced at the district level as well. So the other thing I'll highlight here is a context specific resource around creating a sustainable gratitude practice for your school or district community. So we know that when practiced regularly, gratitude can significantly increase our well-being and our productivity. It's been shown to improve, satisfaction and happiness, help build peer connections and decrease feelings of anxiety and depression, and also help with peer conflict. Gratitude is a form of feedback and a way to be able to build that culture. And so building a sustainable gratitude practice really requires schools to choose strategies that also reflect the various cultures and backgrounds of the staff in the building, and again, integrate them into current practices so they don't feel like something extra or a have to do, but it's really seamless. And the last thing I'll highlight is another toolkit or guide. This is one around family bonding activities. A lot of our family engagement resources are also available in Spanish. And again, feedback about other languages that would be helpful is always welcome, so that we as program managers can kind of advocate for that on our end and getting things translated as needed. And so this is really about, the idea that spending quality time with loved ones can improve social skills and again, increase those feelings of happiness. So these are really kind of low cost family activities. And I will say this last resource is a part of our Feeling Healthy at Home landing page. And just a second. Lost my place. Okay, so yeah, so we have a Healthy at Home initiative that's actually a partnership with Kohl's and Healthier Generation. And so we have this Feeling Healthy at Home page on our website that's not behind our action center. So it's accessible to parents and caregivers. And again, free tools and resources around building social emotional skills. We know that kind of that bridge between the school and home has been something, again, that I know schools have been asking for. And I want to share one more resource in the chat box that's not on this slide, but because it's the beginning of the school year, I just want to plug this. We have some back to school guides for creating a caring school environment. And these are really manageable activities to do in those first 5 weeks of the school year to kind of build a good foundation of like relationship building, trust, students understanding how to advocate for what they need, things like that. And so there's guides for supporting students, and those are broken down by grade level. So they're developmentally appropriate activities. There's another guide for supporting staff that's really great for, you know, department leaders or school administrators to use and incorporate into, you know, faculty meetings and other things. And then there's also a guide for supporting families. And so activities that, again, school administrators and staff can do to build those connections in the home. All right. So we're kind of coming to the end of my presentation. So if you have questions, start kind of thinking about them and jotting them down. In a follow-up email, we'll definitely share how to create a free account and access the assessments, the e-learnings, the resources that I've been referencing. And then I also wanted to highlight on this slide the technical support that's available. So for navigating the Action Center, we have a member support and engagement team that's available. I'm a resource to provide regional specific support here in Georgia, statewide. Again, I'm mostly working intensely with DeKalb, Fulton, and Douglas County, but always looking to provide implementation support to other districts that are wanting to use our resources, and not just schools or districts, but after school, community programs, other community partners, coalitions like y'all, you know, anyone who wants to incorporate these resources into their work with schools, districts, or youth in any setting. I would love to connect with you. And learn about the work that you're doing and learn about how some of this can support that. And that was a lot of me talking at you. So I'll actually maybe stop sharing my slides and would love to move into, yeah, any questions people have. Bonnie, are we working in Clayton County? We're not working directly with Clayton County. In Georgia, no. I know that Kaiser Permanente does some work with them, so I could definitely kind of connect with Quintez around work that's happening in Clayton, but would love to, yeah, if this seems like something they would be interested in, would love to chat more. Any other questions that are out there? I'll give you a minute to kind of think, because again, it was a lot of info.
I'm also thinking about just the cadence of the year, and teachers tend to be, you know, planning now, not for the next 5 weeks, but they're already probably planning for the end of the semester and so, or quarter, whatever they're on the time frame. But
totally,
what would be the best right now at this time of year? You know, what would be an easy offering or open offering to create space, because we know they're just inundated right now. Or what have you seen the best time of year to really do what you're working with?
Yeah, I agree. You know, I do think kind of like we always want to be thinking about a few months ahead. I will say that a really great entry point for a lot of schools that I've worked with is that self-care e-learning. It's something that's really easy to incorporate into faculty meetings, or like, you know, ask teachers to watch it. I mean, I like the idea of providing space for that in a faculty meeting, so they're not having to take planning time, but, you know, they watch the e-learnings and then, you know, maybe watch them, and then the next week, you know, have a discussion about them or something. That's something that I feel like has been really appreciated by staff. Again, having it integrated into meetings rather than something extra for them to do when they have free time. So I think that's a good one. A lot of schools, I'm trying to a lot of our schools have also really gravitated towards the decompression space or Zen Den for teachers. And so that's something that of course takes time to implement, but starting that conversation now and kind of using this school year to gather, input from teachers, figure out a space for it. That's often an obstacle, that could be something that could be a fun project, an energizing project for the year to create this space together. Yeah, Grace, we have definitely, again, this would take kind of planning a little ahead of time, but we've definitely had schools that have asked us to do like the self-care. Douglas County, for instance, my colleague Jason that I worked with, essentially like their January like professional learning day that they have like in between semesters, they did we were doing like we have like a training on relationships. And so we were like doing those trainings just like for all the schools that day. And so I definitely think these e-learnings are something, that can be incorporated not only at the beginning of the year and pre-planning, but also on any, staff, staff PD day that they have throughout the year. And that does take a little bit of ahead of time. I know sometimes it feels like there's mixed messages from like the district will say that the principals really own that time and manage that PD time, which is true. And often I've seen that sometimes those days do get filled up depending on what district trainings are being required. So I do think it takes a little bit of coordination and thinking ahead of time and getting a little creative sometimes depending on what required trainings they have to do. Yeah, is there a list of websites? Yeah, that would be great. We don't have anything on our website, Julie, but if you want to reach out to me, I can get you a list specifically of kind of where our work has touched, either in the more intensive ways like DeKalb, Fulton, and Douglas, but also like I did a similar presentation about the e-learning, the Filling Your Cup e-learning with like Richmond County schools, for example, because they wanted to like roll that out in their district. So feel free, Julie, to email me. I'll drop my email in the chat box and I'm sure we'll send it out afterwards too. Awesome. Good to know, Julie. Yeah. So I'm seeing mindfulness zones. Feel free to also kind of come on mic if you want to ask a question out loud. Make sure I'm not missing any other questions. Yeah, Lynn, that's exactly it. The Zen Den is kind of like a very it's lower lighting. They get lamps, it's helpful for it to be separate than the faculty break room. It is nice to kind of revamp those faculty break rooms as well, but there are often people in there talking and having lunch, and it's not often a relaxing space. And so again, where space allows, schools have really appreciated having this separate space in the building.
I feel like a few years ago, or maybe it was just because I was in that space a few years ago, but with breastfeeding promotion and having lactation rooms, a lot of schools made those into kind of like these wonderful, beautiful spaces. But if you're not female and you're not lactating, then you don't get to enjoy those spaces. And I don't know, be something easy to build off of, I would think, for a lot of schools.
I love that idea. I actually haven't thought about like the multiple roles that this room could take. And so I love that idea of having, it being able to, and often schools with the pandemic, less so now, but would do kind of like signups for the room or have certain hours where it was open for certain things. So that's something to think about if the room is serving kind of multiple purposes like that. But I love that. Any other questions or even just reflections, like things that are feeling helpful that you want to dig into a little bit more?
I love so much of what you've shared, Lila. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about sustainable gratitude programs with either the schools or the districts that you've worked with.
Yeah, this is something that, often we think about expressing gratitude and when we talk to schools or districts, they'll think that they, are appreciating their teachers a lot. But something that is kind of key in the conversations I've had with schools about like a sustainable practice. One part is actually asking staff how they like to be appreciated. We don't often do that. We all like to be recognized and appreciated in different ways. Some of us like public call outs, some, in the newsletter or on the morning announcements. Some of us would prefer appreciate more like, a gift or so I know one school would go around and like they'd have their like hot chocolate cart or their like snack cart that, would be a way that they would appreciate teachers. So or all staff. So that's one component, is asking the question of how people like to be appreciated and building off practices based on that, rather than just how I like to be appreciated, which is how I would, obviously things I would choose. And the other component of it is, I've seen schools really think about like, how are we going to sustain this? So is there some funding that's needed to sustain this gratitude practice? Is there time and meetings that's needed for this? Things like that. And having that be something that's really committed to, and as much as possible, try to like be sustained throughout like turnover, or, if you kind of have a team or it's more of a practice, then when the principal leaves or when a staff person leaves, it's less likely to be kind of lost along with that person. So I think that, we talk a lot about having, the leadership team or some sort of, wellness team at the school that's owning a lot of these practices, so that helps with sustainability a lot too. Thanks for asking. Anything else? I'm also happy to let folks go a few minutes early if there are no more questions or thoughts.
I think that might be it for questions for now, but thank you so much, Lila. I'm so grateful for you being here and sharing all these great resources with us, and a way to get back in touch. And we'll definitely share this information with folks who cannot be here, and also with the folks who are here.
That's great. And I can send y'all a couple. The slide I shared has some like hyperlinks to, how to set up an account. So I can also, if there's anything, Audrey, you need from me for like a follow-up email, let me know.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for spending your lunch with us.
And enjoy the rest of your summer as we jump into a very early fall in Georgia with school, right?